beautiful St. James Episcopal Church, and joining us we have Terry Kerr and Dave Richards. Guys, thank you so much. Terry, you're a member of St. James.
Yes, I am.
Tell us what's going on, because over the last couple years, this is such a beautiful historic church. We know that preservation has become a real topic here in Northwest Pennsylvania, and you guys have done some things to the building and continue to do that's just remarkable. So maybe tackle those topics.
Yeah, very briefly, Luke. The church was in need of some foundational work, so they went ahead and did the slate roof, repaired the slate roof, and did some foundation work, setting some stone, regrouting some stone in the exterior of the church, and then finally cleaning the stone in the exterior of the church. And that was done out of necessity, really, because it was basically collapsing underneath the walls of the exterior of the church. So that project was funded and financially supported through some church finances. And at the same time, shortly thereafter, it was decided that the church needed to undergo a capital campaign, because there needed to be some funding to basically support that work, support the dormer windows, which are in the roof of the church. There are 4 of those that needed to be fixed because they flat out were becoming a safety hazard. So they needed to be repaired and restored. Other projects included a new sound system for the church, which is pending. We also did some work on the exterior as far as landscaping is concerned. And so through the support of the community, through some grants, and also primarily from the congregation, we got tremendous support for the capital campaign. We had a goal of $190,000 to cover those projects and a few more. As a result of that, we were able to raise $190,000, but the congregation was at a point where it had been pretty much exhausted their financial resources to support that. So the organ, which is what we're here to talk about today, was not a part of the original plan for the capital campaign, because of the fact that we just weren't going to be able to support it with all the other projects that we felt were needing to be done. So it was put on the back burner. Basically, we were going to let the organ go, unfortunately, until it was not operable anymore. And then in the capital campaign, with the expectation that the organ would eventually expire, we put in a funding support for an electric piano. So that's kind of where we ended up with a capital campaign. So all of a sudden, Mr. Broadhurst, Jim Broadhurst, out of Pittsburgh, originally from Titusville, a very strong supporter of Titusville and continues to be a supporter of St. James. In fact, his grandfather was a rector here from 1912 to 1947 for a total of 35 years. And his grandfather had, of course, a long legacy, but his legacy was centered on music. And he was very involved in music. In fact, he directed the choir and was involved in some musical events in the community. And Jim Broadhurst recognized that as far as his grandfather, and felt that heritage was extremely important to maintain. The Austin organ was installed by the McKinney family back in 1909. It was opus number 246, so it was a relatively new organ. It was new organ at the time, but there weren't that many being made also at that time. So the console of the organ, which was original, was not functioning well at all. It was basically dying. Parts of it were not working at all. Others were working minimally, which required the organist to become pretty creative in trying to even function for a church service. Several of the pipes weren't working in the back, and Jim, though, felt it was extremely important to maintain an organ here for St. James, and so his gift of $100,000 was earmarked for the organ restoration, or the majority of the organ restoration, and so the congregation graciously accepted that very generous gift, and we contracted with Dave, who has been with St. James as a organ tuner and knows that organ, our organ, inside and out, and then some, over the years from his work. And so he gave us an assessment, and he felt that we needed a new console because the old one was not repairable. And it was actually because of the inner workings, and maybe he can explain that, but the inner workings were actually becoming a fire hazard because they were wrapped in cotton.
Wow.
The features in the organ console. So that's the organ console was a major part of this organ restoration.
So with the whole restoration projects that you guys have been working on, the organ wasn't initially part of that until you received the funding.
And it still really isn't a part of the capital campaign. It's
Sure.
now become its own separate project. And so any funding that comes in that's specific to the organ, then we're able to apply to it. But
And the last time any restoration type of work was done with the organ was back in 2000?
2000, that's correct.
And that was minimal.
Well, I shouldn't say minimal. There were several things that were done, but the work was not financially supported enough to do everything that needed to be done to make it last for another 50, 75 years. So what Dave has been able to do is he assessed what they did, then assessed what needed to be done in order for us to maintain an instrument for another at least 50 years. And we were pretty specific about that with Dave. I said, we're not going to do this. And Jim was supportive of it too, because he wants this to be a project that lasts long term. And he understood and wanted us to really make sure Dave was able to, in his best professional opinion, say that the work that needs to be done now in 2019 will carry us forward for another few generations. So and he was able to do that.
Well, let's bring you into the conversation, Dave. Or unless she wants to keep talking about you.
Oh, no.
Well, speaking of your expertise here, you have quite a rich background. Tell us how you got started.
How long is this show? I started piano lessons in grade school. After 3 years, I hated it, so I quit. Then in high school, I went to a church that had a pipe organ. Wasn't the church I regularly went to, and I noticed the sound of the pipe organ was a lot better than the electronic organ in the church I went to. And my mother noticed that I had noticed, so she asked the organist if he gave organ lessons. He said yes, but you have to have a piano background. So I ended up taking 3 years of organ lessons in high school, went to college, Cincinnati, Ohio, majored in pipe organ to play it, and then went to Duquesne University for graduate school. But then I had to figure out what am I going to do for a living. I'd done carpentry, landscaping, various things, sold electronic organs in malls. That was a fun job. So I worked for organ tuners in Pittsburgh that work on pipe organs, and that's where I started my training. And I did that for 5 years, and then started my own business 39 and a half years ago, and I've been busy ever since.
We were talking earlier, and it's interesting, you were saying the trend now seems to be getting away from the organ and going more electronic. When you look at what St. James is doing and deciding, yes, we need to restore this and preserve it, you got to feel good about that.
Oh, absolutely. A pipe organ's the king of all musical instruments, and it's the largest of all musical instruments. It's the most complicated of all musical instruments, and it has a rich, natural sound. Everything else, pretty much, other than pianos and individual instruments, comes through loudspeakers and it's amplified, and that's what we're used to today. But, you know, it can become grating on your nerves if it's too loud for too long. Where a pipe organ just naturally moves air through organ pipes to create sound waves, which we hear, and it's been done that way. The pipe organ was actually invented over 2,400 years ago in Rome, and then it's developed over the centuries. And about 1,100 years ago, they started to use pipe organs in churches, and that's been so people look at it as a very traditional thing in churches, the music. And of course, it depends on a good instrument and somebody to play it that makes it sound good.
We're going to get into the number of pipes that are here at St. James, but it can be as little as how many pipes?
Smallest organ that I take care of has 85 pipes.
85. And then the largest, you said, is actually located in Philadelphia?
Yeah, it has over 28,000 pipes.
Wow.
And they range in height from, it could be as tall as 64 feet tall. 32 feet would be the largest in most organs. They go down smaller than a pencil. And it's the height of the pipe that determines the frequency of the sound wave or the musical pitch. So the shorter the pipe, the higher the pitch, and the longer or taller, the lower the pitch. Give the bass sounds to the music.
How many pipes are here at St. James?
1,737.
And you've checked all of them.
Plus 20 chime tubes. I cleaned every one of them.
When you start a process like this, what do you do initially to kind of just get your head around the project?
Well, I've been working on this organ for 20 years, just tuning it and doing minor repairs. So I knew what was bad and what was good coming into it. And then I did a little more research when it was time the church was ready to do something about it. And it's now about 1 or 2 days from being completed. It's fully restored. It'll be good for at least 50 years, maybe longer.
Good.
And then it can be rebuilt again. That's the advantage of a pipe organ. You can rebuild them over and over and over, and they can last for centuries.
So what, get into a little bit, and we're going to explore the system back here, because people that sit in the pews and they look up, I think they pretty much just see this nice facade, which only some of them work, and we'll talk about that in a second, but what's behind them is just incredible. I don't think people realize
No, they don't.
what goes on behind the scenes there. But what do you do to start your work? Because you've been doing this since when? January? I mean, this
job since right after New Year's Day. It's January 2nd.
So that began the first of the restoration work for this project. What do you do when you first come into a project like that?
First, we took the pipes out one section at a time, took them back in my shop and cleaned them, repaired dents, cracks in the pipes, soldered the seams that had split. The wood pipes all went up to Erie to Organ Supply Industries, which has about 65 employees, and they repaired the wood pipes, replaced the stoppers in them. They're closed tubes, and the stoppers are sealed with felt and leather, and that was all rotted out, so they replaced that. Then they sprayed new lacquer on them and brought them back, and then I stuck them in the organ. But I took one section at a time out so they could use the other sections while we were working on it, up until Easter. And then it was completely non-functional for about, what, 2 months? 6 weeks?
6 weeks or so.
And
So you're talking about fixing the seams. That's excess air coming out and causing different sounds, or how?
the pipes are either made of wood or metal. The metal pipes are made of zinc or tin and lead, which is a combination that's the same thing as solder. This is what they've used for over 1,000 years in hand-making organ pipes, and all organ pipes are handmade, and they are custom made, so they're expensive. But they're quality, and they'll last for a long time. And if the tube is made of metal, it's rolled around a mandrel, and then it's soldered to make a cylinder. And if the seam where it was soldered splits, then the sound wave won't work. It has to be a specific length for each note to give you the notes on the keyboard. And each different type of pipe produces a different sound. Flutes, string sounds, trumpet sounds, and principal sounds, or diapasons, and that's what is on the gold pipes in the facade. That does not imitate any musical instruments, unique to the pipe organ.
What was the biggest challenge with this project?
Let's see.
Working with Terry?
Now, he's been a wonderful person, very supportive of the whole project.
Well, very passionate. I mean,
Yes.
music's an important part of any church.
Right.
But, I mean, having an organ, and we were talking a little bit about that, right, with folks going a little more electronic or adding a little bit of rock sound to a service. There's still nothing like walking into a church and hearing that organ play.
Yes, and if you notice people get married in the church, people are baptized in the church, people die, have funerals in the church, so it covers all aspects of life for those that are religious and or believe in a higher power or God. That's why there's churches. It's dealing with the life after this life, and most people in the world do believe in an afterlife. So in the Judeo-Christian traditions, they've used pipe organs for their music in the church, and that's, of course, you have a big processional for a wedding when the bride comes down the aisle, and then loud music when they're married and go back the other way off to their honeymoon, and then at the funeral you have more somber, usually softer music because people are reflecting about the person who just passed away. You sing hymns on Sunday at a church where the congregation all joins together to sing. So it's used for a lot of different reasons, and it's very traditional, but yet music is always being written. That's true with even music today. There's musicians that come and create some new kind of music, and then we hear it on the radio or television or whatever now with new technology. And, we say, oh, I like that song or I like that, and then, or you don't, But there's a...
Well, I just to add very quickly, Luke, Dave has mentioned tradition and a religious tradition, and of course St. James having been in existence since the 1860s, there's been a rich history and tradition of St. James, and so the 1909 Austin organ I would have been very disappointed if we weren't able to have this restored and we had to go to an alternative source of music.
And it's pretty close to coming to that, right? At the time?
At the time, it was coming. Well, I don't know that Dave could predict it, but Helen had to become a magician because of all the things that Dave just mentioned. Our organist Helen Dale had to work around all of those leaking pipes and not know which key not to hit, and if she did hit it, it wheezed or it made a sound that wasn't supposed to make. So so she had to be very creative in working around that as far as her playing. And now she's in seventh heaven right now with the new console and the fact that it's 99.9% fully operational.
So all the pipes have been cleaned,
Yes.
touched up, new console, some electronic components added. You're able to get more sound out of this organ?
Well, I replaced all the electrical wiring in this because each pipe has to have a valve that opens and closes to let the compressed air blow up in the pipe, make it sound. All the wiring was original, was 110 years old.
Wow.
It was wrapped in cotton fibers, and the cotton fibers were held together with paraffin wax, and both are flammable. There were no fuses, no circuit breakers anywhere in the organ. If there was an overload or a short circuit, that would have ignited, and that old insulation burns like a wick. Once it starts, it just slowly keeps going. And most of the pipe organs constructed of wood, and this is 110-year-old wood that was dried when it was built. So it's a fire waiting to happen. So I replaced all of the wiring in the organ. Now the control system works the same way as the internet does. It goes through fiber optics with flashes of light. So it takes all the information when the organist pulls out a stop to make a sound, pushes a key down, that signal is converted to digital, which is on-off, to simplify the word. And that's done by a light flashing on or the light is off. It does this about 4 billion times per second, and that's how it translates all the information as the organist is playing to send it back and decode it, and then send electrical signals to the electromagnets and the leather pneumatic valves to open up to let the pipes speak. So it works very fast, and it's the same way the internet works.
Dave, I looked at the pipes, and we're going to look at them in just a second, but I don't know how you did it, keeping track of where each pipe goes.
One pipe at a time.
Terry, do you smile when you walk into church? Outside is beautiful. Everybody gets to see that. But there's a lot of passion put into, again, restoring a church like this that has a rich history, very important to the community. When you walk in, is it hard not to just kind of smile that says, boy, we're doing some good work here?
Well, exactly, and I think the congregation has been, as I've mentioned before, has been extremely supportive over the years, not just currently, but over the years in maintaining the church and making sure that it does stand as a symbol as a major part of the community on this corner. And it's been nice to see people recognize that the exterior of the church has been beautified, and that will last us for a long time. But it's more important that we're able to offer a church service every Sunday, and one that has significant meaning, and we welcome all to come in and join us. And it's important, I think, that they see that there's a vested interest in maintaining the facility. And if that wasn't happening, then that's a symbol that maybe perhaps things aren't happening here. But there are some significant things happening here, and good things. Martha Ishman is doing a great job, our vicar, and our leadership has been extremely supportive of all the projects that have been going on, and of course, without the help of people like Jim Broadhurst and his family, it goes to show that even though you're not living in Titusville full time, that you still have a vested interest in Titusville and specifically St. James. It's beautiful.
Folks can come in on Sunday, hear the organ, It's going to be terrific, but there's also going to be a dedication.
Yes, we're planning to do a dedication. The console is going to be dedicated in Jim's grandfather's name, Albert Broadhurst, who was rector here from 1912 to 1947. He was here for 35 years and was, again, significantly involved in music. So there'll be a plaque installed on the organ in his honor. There'll be a dedication ceremony, or service at 10:30. The bishop will be here from the Northwest Diocese, and we're inviting Dave to be here for that special. The Broadhurst family will be here. And then that afternoon, we're going to be doing a recital at 3 o'clock. The featured organist will be Logan Hamilton, who was a former organist here, young man who just graduated with a major in organ performance. And he's coming back to be the featured organist. We've invited Carl Olson, who was a former organist here for many, many years, to do a piece. And then Helen Dale will also be doing a piece, who is our current organist. So we're really excited about that particular event. And that's going to be open to the public, of course. And we certainly want to invite the community to come in and experience the new instrument.
What's the first
The
hymn?
new old instrument.
The new old instrument.
Yeah.
What's the first hymn you'd like to hear? Or is that to be determined?
Oh my, you're putting me on the spot.
We'll just have to wait and see.
You have to wait and see. Let me think about that.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Dave, you're going to give us a tour. It's incredible what happens behind the scenes. And I think people are really going to get an idea of...
You're going to love it.
Yeah, how much time and dedication it takes to do this. So, again, thank you. We look forward to the tour. Terry, thank
Thanks,
you for your
Luke.
support.
Yep,
And
thank you.
let's go on a tour. So, Dave, as Terry mentioned, this console was completely replaced. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay, this is the control of a pipe organ. It's where the organist sits and plays. And you can see how it is different than a piano, as you have multiple manual keyboards, and you have a pedal keyboard down below that you play with your feet. And
So, Dave, this was all built from scratch, basically?
yes, this is all, 5 months ago, this was raw lumber from the sawmill. And these are, all this had to be custom designed, custom milled, assembled, put a finish on it. The key coverings are synthetic plastic, as are the black keys and white keys. You can see silver knobs down below. You can see things look like gas pedals. Those are volume controls for the different sections of the organ. You have little white buttons under each manual keyboard. Those are preset combinations, so an organist can change something very quickly. You have the stops on the sides that go out and in to turn something on and off. As I was telling Luke earlier, when you've heard the term pulling out all the stops, this is where it came from, the pipe organ. These are the stops, and when you pull it out, it unstops a row of organ pipes so they will sound. So the more that you pull out, the louder the organ gets. And so if you pull all of them out, it's the maximum volume the organ can produce. And that's where the term pulling out all the stops came from. These are rocker tabs. They are couplers. They link one keyboard to the other because each keyboard has its own sets of organ pipes. And then you see a little screen here that displays the information to the organist to know what's going on. This is a music rack where the organist can put their music, and it's got a light, of course. It's all made of solid red oak. It's not veneer. It's all solid wood.
When this was installed, that had to have been a pretty amazing time to hear it for the first time. I mean, this just looks incredible.
Yes, well, it works a lot better than the last one. That's in the junk. It went out in the junk pile. But it works beautifully. The problem with the old console, all the internal wiring, electrical contacts, relays, switches, so forth they were all going bad. A lot of things didn't work. Now everything will work. And I even added one more stop than they had before without adding any pipes, and it electrically combines some pipes to give a more rumbly bass to the organ.
Speaking of pipes, let's go take a look at the pipes.
Sounds good.
All right, Dave, this is exciting. We're going to see the first set of pipes.
Yes. Each keyboard, the 3 manual keyboards, has a section of pipes. This first section we're going to go and look to is the middle of the 3 keyboards. So come on in.
Now, Dave, this is a pretty big drop, so those pipes go all the way to the ground floor.
Some of them do. As I say, the taller they are, the deeper the bass note. It's narrow because in 1909, I think we were all a little bit skinnier and smaller than we are today. So they didn't allow much room. But as you can see, there's rows of pipes, and some are much taller than us, and some are very small.
Now, this is the people that sit in the pews. They don't get to see this, but they get to see these gold pipes up here. So kind of talk about that.
The gold pipes actually, 1/4 of them actually make a sound. The rest are just for show, to look nice and symmetrical in the church. The ones that sound are actually this set right here. Let me lift the pipe up to show you. This pipe's made of pure lead.
Wow.
It's heavier than steel or iron for the same size. I'll blow on it. So that sound is called a diapason or principal, and that's the same sound that's in the facade. But this one's only about 3 feet long. Those are about 8 or 9 feet long. So I'll put it back in.
Now, we saw the opening in the pipe where the sound comes out, right? Or the air comes out.
Yes.
So does it matter how they're positioned here?
Well, an organ pipe's a fascinating thing. This produces a sound wave, which is compressed air and high density air and small density air, light air, just like the weather that creates our weather. There's high pressure, low pressure, and the sound wave comes out this, which we call the mouth of the organ pipe. It's funnel shaped on the bottom. It's cylindrical up here. It's hollow, as you can maybe see in the end. There's no moving parts in this, yet it creates a moving sound wave. And what it does is there's a piece in here that goes this way, all the way across, a plate. It's called the languid. The air comes in this chamber, funnel-shaped chamber. There's a little slot right here where it forms a sheet of air. It comes out, that creates and blows. The air's coming in here, blows out here. That creates high pressure here, low pressure there. And just like the weather, the high pressure and the low pressure they want to balance each other out. So the high pressure comes inside the organ pipe as it's continually blowing in. That creates high pressure here and low pressure here, the opposite. So then the sheet of air flips back out, and it's that sheet of air flipping back and forth that makes the sound wave you hear. But it can never equal itself.
So do you try to have that face out that way? Or?
Yes, although if you listen, I just turned it the opposite way. You can still hear it quite well, but it's always best to make it direct towards the audience or congregation of a church so they can hear it.
Yeah, how many pipes are on this side?
About 500 pipes here. Some are wood, some are metal. These are tin and lead that I had mentioned before. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of a speckled, spotted look because tin and lead do not mix. that when they melt the metals together and pour them in a sheet on a table, they separate, and that's the leopard pattern you see in the pipes. But it gives a rich sound. Let's drop it back in. Now there's louvered shutters behind Luke and I that open and close like Venetian blinds. And there's more organ pipes in here. And to make them louder or softer, you can put them in a room and have one whole wall of these shutters that open and close at the organist's control with their feet. And when they're closed, it muffles the sound just like putting your hand over your face, and the sound gets softer. And they have 16 different stages from all the way open to all the way closed to make the organ pipes, which are always the same volume, sound more musical, loud and soft.
And you had to clean all of this up and rewire it?
Oh, yeah. There's a new motor right here that opens and closes these louvers. And, of course, if I was over at the console, I could demonstrate it for you, but we'll do that at another section of the organ. The bottom keyboard of the organ's inside of here, and the middle keyboard's out here. The top keyboard is in the other room, the other chamber, and the pedal pipes are also over there.
Well, let's head over and take a look.
Okay.
So, Dave, now we're behind the console, and
Yes.
here's another set of pipes. I say set. There's quite a bit back here. How many
Yeah.
pipes are over on this side?
There's about 700 on this side. And they're all wood and metal. Most of them on this side are metal, very skinny or thin, and some are fat. That produces different kinds of sounds. There's trumpet pipes in here. There's a tremolo, which acts like a vibrato in a human voice when they sing.
Also a good group from the 60s.
Oh,
Silence is Golden.
okay.
But we don't like silence here with the organ.
Well, you're going to hear it later. And each row produces different sound. They range in height in here from about 6 inches all the way up to 9 feet. The largest pipes are actually behind or outside of these louvered shutters that produce the big bass sounds to the organ. And those pipes, the biggest one's 18 feet tall,
Really?
almost 2 stories high. It's made of solid sugar pine lumber, about 1.25 inches thick. It's like a box. And the interesting thing is all the wood you see in the pipe organ is not free. It's all hardwood or softwood. And there are no knots in any of the wood. It's the premium wood, because a knot will affect the quality of the sound wave, or it will destroy the sound wave in an organ pipe, because it's a different density than the wood surrounding it. So it's all the best lumber you can buy, and some of them are stoppered and some of them are closed tubes, and those are the little round handles you see on the tops of the wood pipes. And some of the pipes are open tubes, like most of the metal pipes are open, and some of the wood pipes are.
How do you decide where to start on a project like this?
Well, you have to look at logistics. Is one thing in front of another that's in the way? Then you have to remove the thing that's in the way to get to the other part. And that's kind of what I did here, because there's a door right in the wall back there where the electric cords are hanging, which I haven't plugged in yet. And that door goes into another room which has more organ pipes in it. It's called the Echo.
And actually, where Adam's standing right now, it goes down, how many feet?
About 6 or 7 feet below his feet, because the tall pipes, the tallest one's 18 feet tall, and it comes all the way up, but it still didn't have enough ceiling clearance, so when it gets up the top, they mitered the pipe into an L shape, because you have to have the specific length of the pipe to produce the exact frequency of the sound wave or the musical note. So you can't shorten the pipe or you'll have the wrong note. So they had to keep the length the same, but when the ceiling got in the way, they just turned the pipe to the left from going vertically up, and that's called mitering, to get the proper length, and we'll zoom in and see that in a moment.
Now we're down below, what you said, about 6 feet.
Yes.
How much time have you spent down here, or what did you have to do down here?
I had to clean all these big wood pipes. Which,
So these aren't like casings; these are pipes,
yeah,
wooden pipes.
This is they're tubes. I'm gonna pull one out here so that get it back here so you can see it. There's the mouth of the pipe that makes the sound wave. The air goes in the round tube at the bottom. It's made of wood, but it's hollow in here. And then there's a tuning mechanism on top.
So when you say clean, what all do you do?
Well, you vacuum the worst of the stuff off, and then you wipe it down, with a cleanser and water. But you can't get them soaking wet, or the animal hide glue, which is hot glue that glued these together, would soften and the pipe would fall apart. So you have to have the right amount of water.
Is it a special cleaner, or are you using like Murphy's oil soap on these?
Well, I use Lysol, or you could use Tide, or Simple Green. Anything that what a soap or cleaner does is it breaks down the oil so it suspends in the water to get it off of what you're cleaning. So,
It's incredible down here.
yeah, it's a tight space. It shakes the floor when these pipes speak because of the deep sound waves. Deep sound waves will go right through solid walls, where high frequency pitches will bounce off a wall.
And we don't want to be down here when you're playing that, right?
Well, come on, be brave.
We'll head back up.
Doesn't that sound beautiful? Thank you for joining us for this very special program. We hope you've enjoyed it and that you've gained some information about how a church pipe organ works in general, but more specifically about how our church organ operates here at St. James. We are very pleased with the restoration work that Dave Richard provided us. He was tireless in his efforts to bring this church organ up to standards of today's technology. This was built in 1909 originally and has lasted over 110 years. And we are very excited about the prospect of this lasting for decades to come. More importantly, we are thankful for the contribution that made this possible from the Broadhurst family and from the contributions from the parish family as well. Again, thank you for joining us.
I'm Martha Ishman, pastor at St. James Church. I would like to extend to you a warm welcome for our initial event, an organ recital to be held September 29th of this year, featuring Logan Hamilton, our former organist, as well as Carl Olson and Helen Dale. It should be a fabulous concert. Logan has said he's going to blow the doors off the church, and it'll be a very exciting day. Please join us at 3 p.m. on the 29th of September. We invite you to visit our website for more information about this event, as well as other events that are being planned. Our hope is that everyone throughout the Titusville region will enjoy this extraordinary instrument. Thank you.